I would like to request all the speaking director, Anarock Retail Private Limited, Mr. Ankur Bhatia, CEO, Chagori India Retail Limited, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Chief Custom Officer, Coca-Cola Company, Mr. Jasjeet Sethi, CEO, TCI Supply Chain Solutions, Mr. Gurvinderjeet Samra, Chief Business Officer, Tata Click, Mr. Raghu Rajgopalan, President, Lifestyle International Private Limited. Over to you, Mr. Pankaj Renjhen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If everybody can settle down, we can start. Thank you so much for this esteemed panel and to CII for putting it together. You know, it's an interesting session because, and I was having a chat with some of the colleagues who are on this panel at lunchtime, and they were telling me that how the things have suddenly changed and the pace which this is changing at in 10 years. Today, it's the customer experience, which at one stage was all about brick and mortar stores where people used to go and shop in a dukaan on various formats, or whether it was a mall or it's a local grocery shop. Then it suddenly became a lot more, became online. And then it became a master, a marketplace models for the Amazons and the Flipkarts to come. And today, the back end is again changing very significantly. So, you know, just to, for a larger audience, to just talk about what is Omnichannel. So really, what has happened in the Omnichannel world, and I've got some statistics which I noted down, which says that India's omni-channel business could actually go up 5 times in the next 5 years. So by 2027, it will be a $55 billion, which is currently at $11 billion. The global omni-channel trends, which is driving it, is that 50% of the growth is seen in omni-channel retail shopping post-2021. So really, after post-COVID, I think the world is, the pace in some of these industries has significantly taken up. 50% of the users consult 3 channels before buying a big ticket purchase. So we expect that, we think that the customer goes into a store and he's already, he will come into the store and make a decision. He's, I think, made a decision somewhere and he's come and ratifying that decision of buying that product in the store. 73% of the consumers use multiple channels in their purchase journey and expect the same experience at every touch point of the channel which they are touching on. There is a 3.5 times more engagement if it is a product or a company or a brand is on omni-channel. So really, I think this coupled with the fact that India being essentially a very young economy, fastest growing, obviously we talked about in the previous session as well, in saying that we are the largest in the world, 1.4 billion people. I don't know how many of you know that we are one of the only economies in the next 5 or 10 years, from a population perspective, will have average population reducing. So we'll come down from a 29 average population to 27 in the next 5 or 10 years. So we are actually a more younger population apart from the numbers. We are also more younger. And the younger means that obviously the aspiration of the people is that they are adopting newer products, technologies, or more adaptable to the newer way of things than what have been done in the previous decade. So, you know, from a customer experience perspective, and the session is about customer experience in the omni-channel world, which is whether this is in the store, whether it's online, whether it's in a hybrid between the two. I think first let's understand is how we geared up for this omni-channel. And you know, Jasjeet, we were talking about at lunchtime, and you were telling me very interesting anecdotes and things which are changing first from a warehousing perspective and the back-end perspective of logistics to cater to this new world of retail, whether it's online and offline.
So what we're speaking about lunchtime, we can't say all those things in this room, but yeah, I'll try to be as candid as possible. So we have been working alongside the changes in the retail landscape for the last 15, 20 years. You know, it seems a long time ago, but it's just 10 years since Amazon has been here, just 10 years. Previous to that, we had something called TV shopping. TV shopping was very easy for warehousing. Whatever promo was run, only that product would be ordered, very simple to pick and pack and ship. With e-commerce, you had a catalog which was ever growing, very difficult to pick those lines. Orders would come in late at night, expectancy was very, very high, and we were catering to that. So e-commerce in India in the last 10 years has evolved to 3 levels. What we call now is e-commerce 3.0. The first was the initial phases of TV shopping, other experiments. Then when the platforms like Amazon, Flipkart came in, they said to service the customer, we will put the material in our warehouse. And we will add on warehouses across the country. So whenever there is a requirement of a product, it will be in our warehouse, we will pack it, ship it, and deliver it to your doorstep. Seemed very simple, and people were on that bandwagon. Over time, what happened is that brands started realizing that the inventory is stuck. Now, if someone is selling a shirt on Amazon, he can't sell it on Flipkart. So his material is stuck in the Amazon warehouse till it becomes lower in value. Then has to come down as a markdown. So brands started thinking, what can we do that I can use the services of Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, maybe a Tata Click, and also a Jio, while still having the same inventory. So this is what we call as the e-commerce 3.0. And suddenly what you found was that the brands, they started putting inventory in their backstore, having an order fulfillment model in which the same inventory is visible to all of them, but locked. Almost like when you go to book a ticket on Book My Show on a movie hall, you see some empty seats there, you click on that. They remain blocked for 10 minutes. If you do the purchase, fine, otherwise it's again released. Similarly, the inventory gets blocked on, let's say, on Ajio. You have bought that, fine, not bought it, it goes to the next platform. So what is changing in this? The entire model is becoming much more efficient. Items like mobile phone, like Samsung and others, they do something called a D2C. A D2C means direct to consumer. A B2C means business to consumer. When it is from a D2C, then Samsung can sell that phone on any possible platform. Pepe Jeans, a previous session panelist, he can sell that product on any single platform across the country with the same inventory with minimum markdowns. What happens then? Now, the same warehouse has got space for B2C, which is for e-commerce, and also for the distributors. So inventory today, which is the most precious item of any retailer, is now in his hands. With this, the requirement of warehousing comes down. So while you see e-commerce growing, the warehouse requirements are not growing. So we are becoming far more efficient. And in this 10 years, what has happened is that probably 20 years of changes of the world we have compressed. In the previous session, someone asked about ONDC. I think, what is ONDC? You see, suppose you have the internet, and instead of having just www, you have various protocols. So what would happen? You would be in silos and would not be able to communicate on a common platform. What ONDC tries to do is that democratize it. Let us say it is not, you will not see ONDC in upfront. But if you go to a Paytm app, you will find ONDC there, and you would not believe it that they are actually doing more food deliveries now than people have imagined. They're giving the Zomatos and the Swiggy run for their money. In Karnataka and in Kerala, they are one of the highest in taxi booking apps. So it's a marketplace. It's a B2B marketplace. A seller registers there, a buyer registers there. Something like an India Mart on steroids. So what is happening in that case is similar to what's happening out there. And probably I would say ONDC, and then you have something called OCEN, which is Open Credit Enablement Network, which is still not known by many people, but it will also democratize that. Today you look at a CIBIL score something, so your finance is there and your network is out there. So I think the Internet 4.0 is also coming in very soon. Thank you, Pankaj.
So, Jazzy, since you mentioned about that, today the retailers, there is a retail, I mean, it's Internet or Retail 3.0, which is coming in, wherein the entire backend essentially is becoming one for all the platforms. It's not about every brand or every marketplace or every online retailer or an offline retailer trying to build their own logistics. I mean, they would be doing, I presume they will be doing, but I'm saying it's essentially becoming one hubs which are emerging as well. But given an extent of the country like India, where there is the essential growth, which we all know is obviously driven largely by the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, which is the bigger cities. But we all believe that the next 10 years is a lot about the smaller cities of India, which is tier 3 and tier 4. What is the kind of supply chain issues and challenges which are there on the ground right now which you face to manage the omni-channel network? Because in the physical networks or the distribution may not be, warehousing may not be that large because the cities are, I mean, there are like 90 cities in India which are more than 300,000 people and above. I mean, how many cities can you penetrate? But whereas online retail has penetrated it with almost every big pin code which has been mapped out. But what are the challenges on the ground to execute it?
That's a great question. You know, all management people work on the Pareto's principle, that 20% of the market will have 80% of the revenue or the growth. So the focus has always been on these cities, but going forward now, the focus is only on the smaller cities. The bigger cities, probably they are reaching a peak and a stage of maturity. It is the smaller cities where we see the growth for warehousing happening, the networks also emerging. Interestingly, India has got the highest number of mom and pop stores. And all those have a very unique supply chain. Now, beating that supply chain would be very difficult. If you see a small town, let's say in Madhya Pradesh, that is probably fed from a mandi by a jeep which is coming there every day in the afternoon carrying a few bags for him. So that network works in a very informal way. It will be very difficult for the organized players to penetrate that network at those price points. But having said that, the future growth is what we say is in the Bharat. That is where networks are coming up and the supply chain challenges are quite high there because the scale is not there. So the cost per unit is far more higher and becomes unviable unless we are able to somehow make it a more omni-channel and more unified experience. I'll just pause a moment here and give you another reflection. You see, when retail has been coming up, there's also been FMCG guys, Britannia, Nestle, HUL. They have not been sitting idle. They have been building their networks as well. And those networks they're building up is very smartly because India is still the only country where FMCG rules the roost and not the big retailers like Metro. And to do that, they have to ensure the distributors are stronger. What they are doing is trying to adopt hybrid models while scaling up the warehouses, but having distribution more like a milk run. And these guys have the volumes. They have the outlets. The outlets, in turn, for the treasury, do something called a beat. And I think Coca-Cola is one of the companies which is one of the best in that beats, which would go in a small vehicle carrying a mobile phone and a salesperson, and he would go to different kiosks on the way, say, "Tumne aaj kitna becha hai? Tumko kya chahiye?" He gives the material to him, invoice there itself, and moves on. So that kind of model which people like Coca-Cola are doing are something which would probably solve that answer.
Great. You know, and you talked about FMCG's company doing it, and I remember I did my, summers, Abhishek, in summer training when I was doing my MBA was in a competitor brand, but my experience of 2 months was to be put in a truck and go and distribute in that truck in summers in Delhi to distribute the product in various retailers format. Has that changed? Because today the customer, and I remembered and asking the person who's my mentor and saying, how does it help? And he said, create visibility for the product, and the product visibility was to be created at a panwala. So and he said that's the most important touch point because the customer's experience starts there. Because the customer at times comes in the heat and doesn't ask for a brand, or he asks for a brand, but he just wants a cold product, right, to drink at that point of time. So Abhishek, but what's happened in the last 10 years? Because today, organized retailers, I know my friends Ankur and Gurumdeep and Raghu will talk about is organized retailing because they are obviously into a lot of physical retail stores and also online as well. But you are, as Rashid was saying, a pure hardcore FMCG product business distribution model. But how have you seen the omni-channel straight? Because at that one point of time, the product was sold by a Kirana store. Today, it is being sold in organized retail hypermarkets. It's sold by Blinkit, which has got some kind of an experience today because you can actually have a delivery of, and I've experienced it myself, that I wanted to have a soft drink and I wanted a Diet Coke when I was having my burger at lunchtime at home on a Saturday, one day. And I said, I asked my maid, she says, we've run out of it. I actually ordered it, and it was delivered on my dining table in 9 minutes. It was there in 9 minutes. That was a kind of experience from a product because I put it on my app, I clicked on the product, and just one single Diet Coke. So suddenly the world has suddenly changed where the customers know what he wants. He probably wants it right there and there in that time as well. Maybe it's more metro-driven, or I don't know how they think, but it'll be great to understand what's happening in your world from an FMCG perspective, that how is the customer experience changing, because there are multiple channels of distribution or touch points the customers are reaching out today.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I think, Pankaj, first of all, the short answer to your question, things have not changed since you were interning. So what we famously and very fondly call the route ride still exists in the system. And
So we still see the trucks on the road, the red trucks on the road with lots and lots of crates of,
yes.
except it's plastic and more of, then less of glass bottles.
Yes, so I think the trucks are out there. Obviously, the shape, form, format, the overall eco-friendliness of the mode of transportation, etc. Things have changed drastically, but I think the route ride has not changed. And I remember close to 2 decades back when I joined the company, my then HR manager refused to meet me, saying, "Usko bolo pehle ek hafta route ride karke aayega, phir mere paas aayega, nahi to office mein aane mat bolna." So I think some of those things, and I think that's a very quintessential FMCG thing, to be able to really see the business at the very, very grounding of it. And I think your question and our discussion today is a bit broader in that sense. And Coca-Cola is, I think, one of those unique product categories where I think this conversation about multi-channel and omni-channel becomes very pertinent and relevant. You know, we are a category which is there at, like you said, the Panwala or some of the organized modern retail formats or quick commerce or e-commerce, or whether you are at a cinema or at a train station, or for that matter, 35,000 feet in the air and you want to have your Diet Coke and have it there. So, so it's pretty relevant and pertinent. As I was thinking about this conversation, I thought let's also get an idea of what is the classical textbook definition of, you know, multi-channel versus omni-channel. I did some Googling around it. I don't claim to be an expert, though I think we practice it for a living. And some of the things that came across there was multi-channel is more product forward and omni-channel is more customer back and consumer back. And then there were many renditions and versions of it. As we think of it, I think for categories like us, we are truly multi-channel and transitioning to omni-channel. The way I see it, I think the fundamental difference there is being present in all those multiple channels in a seamless, integrated fashion. So it's a bit of a fine balance being between being standardized and being present there, yet being customized with your product format, with your messaging. And the reason I say messaging is because a lot of these omni-channel platforms or the e-commerce platforms that we speak about are also, you know, media platforms. In fact, for that matter, organized retail, I think retail media is a very you know, keenly discussed topic, and the value that you bring as media platforms. So in that sense, you know, that reality is always there. And I think when we think of this transition, to my mind, one of the most important things that organizations like ours do is how are we internally reorganizing ourselves to live this reality. So I'll give you two examples of how we are doing at Coca-Cola. Is in the good old days, you know, we used to have structures of being organizing our selling systems by say channel types. So, you know, I'm a channel manager for this channel, I'm a channel manager for this channel, I'm a channel manager for this channel. Today, the way we are trying to do the same thing is with a customer back approach and work in ecosystems versus working in channels. To say that if we are working with our customer partners who are operating in a certain ecosystem where, let's say, partners are working through you know, different formats, we will make sure that we have a common team working through those multiple formats so that we are able to kind of partner and curate over a big picture and provide that seamless experience across formats. Now, obviously, like I said, the product format will change because essentially for a category like ours, at the end of the day, what is important is the consumption occasion that we are driving. So is it a leisure occasion? Is it a meals occasion? Is it you know, is it a party occasion, or is it an on-the-go in transit occasion? So the product format will change, and by virtue of that, the messaging around it will obviously change. And which is where I think the second example is of how we are organizing our marketing organization. So again, from a very, very classical you know, media split-based way, we are thinking about it and organize ourselves in what we call the integrated marketing experiences. So there again, what we try and do is think through this in a seamless, integrated fashion to say, irrespective of where the shopper or the consumer is coming, how do we give those seamless experiences? So I think all in all, one of my big reflections really is that how are we internally reorganizing ourselves to the new reality, to my mind, becomes the first starting point of making this shift and this change and this transition. And I think, like Jasjeet said, the versions are changing very fast. So from 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So we'll have to really keep pace and building capability. So I think you mentioned about the Blinkit example, and every time I meet Albinder, I tell him this, I tell him stories of what happened at my house and how we do this ordering. And it's so fascinating, the first time you read about it and say, oh, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, is it really possible? And when you experience it, that this stuff is for real. So I think the other aspect that I would just want to allude is a continuous capability building for organizations like ours. So I think, as you become large in size and scale, one of the things you have to keep pace with is the agility to kind of really transform and to be able to respond to that changing ecosystem. And I think that's where building continuous capability becomes very, very essential. So I think those would be my top reflections, really.
Yeah. So Abhishek, thank you so much. And I absolutely great to get understanding from you in saying that today you're focusing on customer experiences in different way, although you're still maintaining a large part of your distribution, because that's the backbone of the business. And that's great. Coming to you, Guravinderjeet, there was a boom suddenly at one stage, and everybody talked about that online retail will just take away everything, and the online commerce will really be the way to go through. And then suddenly there came a time when it said it has to be a hybrid approach. So it has to be online will have its own opportunity, offline will continue to bring alongside, and also will start, there'll be a new convergence, and which is that both will work together and it'll become seamless as well, and that's what we call omnichannel today. But coming from you, where Tata Click is such a predominant player, which is a marketplace, and you have a marketplace which spans from regular retail to even luxury retail as well. How are you seeing the change which is happening both, and I want to understand from both, from a front-end perspective, which is from a consumer experience perspective, and also from the other side as a logistics perspective in terms of the back-end. How is the change which is happening, and how is the online businesses seeing that which is happening for this omnichannel?
Thanks, Pankaj. Very good question. So I think if we look at the history of evolution of online in the country, initially, brands were comfortable selling in their environments a lot in the physical space. Then the online players started becoming big, and they also became big a lot on the back of very aggressive discountings and promotions to customers. So brands initially started using them as discounting channels, that whatever I want to liquidate, I'll sell it off to the online players. And that's how it started coming up. And they obviously started becoming big, and we also joke about it that it became like a drug. You're on a drug, you're selling, of course they're discounting it. They were also aware that it is diluting their brands. It is also affecting their offline sales. And then they started, brands started following different strategies. They thought, let me make SMUs, which are only for online. I will protect trade. I will do my own stores differently. All of that happened. Obviously, one of the greatest value proposition of online was access to customers, where customers want products and brands in different parts of the country, and many things are not accessible. Many pieces of inventory are not even available in tier 2, tier 3 towns, right? So customer is certainly demanding that I want the product. So clearly, brands also started waking up to the opportunity that it is a meaningful opportunity. It is not just liquidation channel, not just a fringe thing. It can be fairly mainstream. So eventually, then it came to a point, and somewhere in that journey, even we came into existence where we said we'll be a branded omni-channel platform. Sort of realizing all of this, we said we will, so on our platform, we have about 7,000 stores of different brands that are connected to the platform. And what that means is if an order comes, it gets allocated to the store, gets shipped from the store, etc. But in all of this, what happened is brands realized that the right thing to do also is make all inventory available to customers everywhere at all times. It's like the title of the movie, everything everywhere all at once, essentially. Customers certainly want it.
So there is no essentially exclusivity left or differentiation left whether the
So-
inventory is available in your platform is not available in the store.
Yes.
Same thing is
So,
available.
no, so I see the right brands, of course, still it's an evolution. Some brands are in different parts of the journey, some in different parts of the journey. The ones who are doing it right, to my mind, are the ones who are controlling the inventory so that they control the price and promotions. They don't get the brand get diluted. Yet they make everything available to customers on all channels at all times, right? That is the right thing to do, obviously, which also means it is the most efficient inventory solution out there. Any inventory can be accessed by anywhere, and ideally, whatever is closest to the customer should service in the fastest way. That's why a Delhi customer, if he places an order in the store in Delhi, obviously I'll allocate that order to Delhi store, somebody will pick it up. And the other aspects of Omnichannel also for retailers are order in store, click and collect, endless aisle, various other sort of extensions of it. But at the heart of it, it is making all inventories, everything accessible to customers at all times uniformly so that they see the brand uniformly in the way the brand is. Now, of course, there are lots of ifs and buts and conditions, etc. But the right ones are controlling it. Some who started a strategy that I will make SMUs, they are on a different track. They are trying to protect trade and their own channels differently. So that's what my take on it is. It is still evolving. I also strongly believe that the right way for the brands to do it is to control that entirely so that they don't get the brands get diluted from because what is a brand? It's the ability of a product for brand to charge a certain premium over a commodity product. That is what a brand is. So brands have taken long years to build that premium and command that premium. So that's what my take on the whole thing is.
So, Gurunjit, for example, today, I mean, this is what retailers have always telling because we deal mostly a lot more with the brick and mortar and also now brands like yourselves who are also venturing into physical stores. It's very difficult to say where is the customer's journey starting and where is it ending now.
Absolutely.
At times, it starts on your mobile phone, you look up the product and you eventually go buy it in the store. Or you look up in the store, physically feel it, and you say, listen, okay, I may be running out of time, or maybe let me go and think about it and buy it. And you go back home and say, suddenly go to Tata Click and say, go buy the Lacoste t-shirt, which you've been wanting to buy, right? Because now, in fact, the pricing is somewhat similar. And also somewhere in some product categories, I would say price is not so critical as well as a factor as well. And the convenience also, then free returns, and and somebody comes and picks it up. But how do you control in an omni-channel world, particularly when you're dealing with multiple products, multiple different brands? Because when I go to say a Lacoste store, or when I go to a Levi store, or I go to a Pepe store, for that matter, there I get a specific experience for that brand, right? When I come to Tata Click, I get a different kind of an experience. So in an omni-channel world, are we all confusing the customer as well? Or is the customer now becoming very smart? He knows exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
And you're able to create a different experiences for him as well.
Customer is always very smart, right? They know what they want. Of course, different platforms are taking different routes. Somebody is becoming a challenger on the back of discounting and promotions, right? It's saying, this is the place for you to buy the same product cheapest, right? Whereas somebody like us will try to say, I am trying my best to replicate and give you the experience what the brand should give you in a store. I will have a dedicated brand store. I will try to promote the collections and stories, etc. So I will do again, different online players will also, but customer always is smart enough to know what they want. If brands let it get diluted and customers will go everywhere and find out where it is cheapest. But if it is exerting a lot of control on that, customers will also adapt to it. And another very interesting fact I'll tell you, so Westside was initially exclusively selling with us for a long time. And they had this fear that there could be cannibalization also, that online will take away some sales, etc. But actually we did a very detailed study and realized only the frequency of purchase for the same customer went up. So from a store, let's say a Kolaba store customer living in that vicinity, they were buying 4 times in a year. The moment it became available online, their frequency went up to 6 times a year. So it's not, even the cannibalization was not really an issue. So customer is always smart. They know what they want, more or less. They will try different things also. It's now the onus is on the brands that how do they want to represent themselves in this in this world which is converging. You are right, journeys are starting here, ending there. I leave it in cart, I may want to collect it from the store, all of it. So definitely customer wants all of it. Different brands are on different journeys. And it's important that they should have their strategies right to sort of get this sorted, essentially.
But on the logistics part, one question: at when the online marketplaces and online retail had become a big story, always a talk was that the cost of logistics was still always considered to be very high and the biggest pain point, or one of the big pain points which was there. Was Omnichannel solving that and reducing it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if Omnichannel done right, will always reduce the cost of all of it instead of a centralized from one location going to everywhere.
Like today you have an access, so example, if you have a Pepe Jeans available on your platform, you could pick it up from the closest Pepe Jeans store and deliver it.
Not only can you pick it up, obviously an Omnichannel platform will allocate that order closest to the customer. It'll get, so the distance traveled for that product, carbon footprint, everything, cost of delivery is lower, right? If done efficiently and effectively. Obviously, if it is not available in Delhi, I'll go to the next nearest store, let's say Chandigarh, I'll get shipped from there, etc. So we also see almost 20 to 30% lower logistics cost comparatively if it is shipped from a brand in one location to an Omnichannel from multiple locations when orders smartly is allocated closest to the customer.
Great. Coming to you, Raghu, Landmark Group has always been the champion of multiple formats, offline retail. And at one time it was always considered, you always said, and I remember talking to you and your colleagues over the years and said, we are a physical brick and mortar company who always believe that, and obviously there are big robust operations in the Middle East and GCC part of the world as well. How have you seen this journey changing, and what's happening with the consumer perspective from an omni-channel perspective in saying, is there a change which is happening? Are you still seeing that your format's changing because of them, if the omni-channel change?
Yeah. Okay. See, it will still remain to be the hardcore brick and mortar stores in terms of presence and as far as expansions in future. So while the consumers have started shifting towards the offline and online, right? The journey in Landmark Group with respect to this Omni has started even before we started embracing into the online retail. So somewhere in 2015-16 itself, we started talking about multi-channel and then how do we make the multi-channel to omni-channel, okay? So it is 2017 is what actually we first entered into the e-commerce business. But before that itself, the omni-channel discussions have already started. How do we make the consumer experience by buying in a store, which is established in a particular way, the look and feel and design, the presentation of the product, and we are being in the fashion category. So the presentation of the merchandise was more important. So we'll be able to translate that in a digital site. So at that point of time, we said that, okay, there could be a movement of the research offline and buy online, or research online and buy offline. So keeping that in mind, the omni-channel thought process have started. And 2017, we started the first e-commerce. So at that time, when we started, then immediately we said, okay, click and collect is something that is more important because we want to expect the customer also to experience. And one is on the logistics cost, how do we bring it down and then make the customer, because we are a large number of stores and then the customers should experience the stores and the products what we have and things like that. So we moved in and then next we enabled the customers, okay, you buy anywhere and return anywhere. You buy online and then come and exchange without any questions. Of course, the India with a lot of GST compliances and everything, there's a lot more technology involved in terms of taxation involvement. So it was a journey which started and we moved ahead. And then how do we enable the front-end staff to man over the customer expectation between the, the digital experience and offline store experience. So in the offline, we started getting, okay, we will get extra, all the products will get short. In the sense, the fashion retail, the biggest challenge is that, your number of options, and then every season it gets changed, according to the categories. So huge amount of cost was getting involved in terms of the shooting the products, because it is not required when it goes to an offline retail. The cost of back-end management is very high. Unless you showcase the products in all the 360 degrees and talk about the product, the customers will not be able to get the real sense of the product, what to buy, right? So those things have started getting into this thing. Then we put up our own studio in the back end, in the corporate office, and then we started getting the product shoots more in-house than outsourced. Because the moment you start outsourcing, the cost builds up. And all these costs will start building up, then ultimately the price effect is going to come, and customer is going to pay for it.
But Raghu, did you start making a selection of products only available, or the entire product?
Yeah, see, when we started initially, the products were, okay, we buy X quantity for a store, and a fraction of quantity was bought for the online business, and then it was distributed across the 3 or 4 warehouses from there getting delivered. But then we said that, okay, that means the availability of product and the consumer timelines requirement, the order is not getting fully fulfilled. The customer expectation also not met. Then he said, okay, we'll go for a single warehouse consolidated. So maybe the logistics cost may be more, but the customer will get the entire spectrum of products at one go, so the business will get improved. Then the stage 3 came, said, okay, how do I make all the stock that is available in the country visible to the consumer? So that's where we started a project called Single View of Inventory. So with 800 stores, multi-brands, bringing that platform was not very easy. And as it is in the day-to-day retail operations itself, the data management is not 100% real time. It is always a couple of hours lagging will always be there. There will be a store server, from store server to the central servers to the Omnichannel server. So it was a long journey. So we started moving into the single view of inventory somewhere in 2019, right? So whereby we are able to get the business getting better. Even the last piece of the product which is lying in anywhere in the country, and the customer is looking for it, so we are able to sell it. In the sense, I'm not talking about the last, but the last 10 of the 5,000 product pieces have been purchased. So then that helped, the single view of inventory helped us. And this also helped us to bring down the logistics cost. In the sense, one is the logistics cost, which is secondary. One is customer is able to be serviced within 2 to 3 days of time, and the time they place the purchase order. And we have, relatively, we are present almost around 250 to 300 towns. And we are now servicing close to about some 52,000 pin codes. So the customers had a ease of getting the delivery at the fastest pace. So single view of inventory helped us. And today I can say that while the e-commerce business, online business is in single digit to the company's overall turnover, but we could see at 29 to 30% of our orders are fulfilled from the nearest store, and we are able to deliver 70% of the orders within 2 days, sorry. That's the movement that has happened. So the customers have become integrated. So when we started e-commerce, customer base was different. Online commerce, offline stores were different. At some point in time, we have merged it. So we are able to see the customer journey between the offline and online very clearly. I mean, completely compressed today. And we are able to see the life cycle journey of the consumer, the loyalty values, etc. And what we see is an omni-channel customer's offtake is much higher than either of the two channels exclusivity.
Great. And coming to you, Ankur, you represent a very interesting brand and a brand which is very focused in terms of from a customer experience perspective when you go to from a product as well. Like, probably your customer knows very well what he's going for in terms of, because you represent Columbia, which is always known for a specific sportswear and athleisure as a category. And I'm sure there's a cusp around it as well. But a Columbia customer probably is more focused than, as you must have seen as well. So is you're all about the brand. How has been the journey in India? And are you there on the online platforms, multi-platforms? And is there an omni-channel strategy around it, or is still focused to build the brand strategy? Because obviously you've not been, I mean, how many years in India, first of all, in Colombia, for Colombia?
Thanks, Pankaj. I'll take your question and I'll take your mic also. So, of course, the brand strategy came first and it's still continuing. But the journey of omni-channel retailing actually started 10 years back. We are still discussing omni-channel, and 10 years down the line also we'll be discussing omni-channel also, because it's such a long journey. And I think it will end, especially for our brand, it will end only when if a unique customer is standing in our store in Saket and somebody is telling him about a waterproof shoe, he gets the same message when he's standing in a franchisee store in Srinagar and gets the same detailing about that shoe and is able to make a conscious decision to buy that shoe, and the messaging is unique. It's the same. I think that would be the time when I would say that we have reached that cusp of calling ourselves a omni-channel retailer. As of today, I think we'll be one of the last few brands to be on that journey. We would be like 10% omni-channel, and rest would be all multi-channel and various aspects. So we are far, far away from that. It is so people-dependent, it is so person-dependent, that retail staff standing there in terms of getting that message across. And I think my only fear is that today technology is an enabler in getting us to that 100% omni-channel retailing rank. My fear is that 10 years down the line, we would not even need humans, and technology would just give that message which I want my customers to know. There would be a chat GPT engine sitting there. He would tell the customer what exactly is best for him, and we would just not need a sales staff. That's my fear. As of now, we are still some time away from that, but the way things are changing, and of course, my customer needs that experience. So I want that experience to be unique across all my channels. And I have my own channels, and I have a large business which is coming from other distribution partners and from franchisee partners and from marketplaces like the ones which Guri is working for, and so many other marketplaces. I think till the time that experience is not unique, I am only 10% omni-channel ready.
And when you say only 10% omni-channel ready, is it because the brand is still developing in India, or is it because your customer you know your customer well, and you know that the customer is somebody whom I want to service personally at every location which I'm there?
It's the second one, Pankaj, because we have reached that critical mass in which we have some 100 selling points in the country. But the messaging which goes across to any customer for the same product is so different. And till the time that doesn't become unique, I would say that we are still very, very nascent, and we have just started on that omni-channel journey.
Great. Thank you so much, and I'll really appreciate all the panelists. I think what everybody has a conclusive to is that one, omni-channel is something which has already been there, but now caught on, and it's prevalent and it's going to continue, as Ankur was rightly saying. Even 10 years down the line, we're going to be talking about omni-channel. Even organizations like Coca-Cola, which were hardcore FMCG, are today are talking multi-channel, maybe have distribution networks multi-channel, but it's also about the fact it's about creating consumer experiences at each buying point which is there. And obviously online and offline retail stores continue to have a blend of both online and physical presence as well. And Jasjeet talked about obviously how suddenly the back end of the market suddenly or the system changed to cope up with this omni-channel, and it continues to develop. I think one big thing which comes out with omni-channel is that becomes cost effectiveness. Probably it helps in cost effectiveness, and I think once the customer experience, as Ankur is saying, becomes templatized, where I can give the same customer experience in a Saket or a Shillong or in a Srinagar, I think this the omni-channel puzzle would have been very much more easier to have solved and said it's the strategy full in place. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, all the speakers.